Hello there, welcome to the October 2020 applied paper. Here we're looking at question 3. Each member of a group of 27 people was timed when completing a puzzle. The time taken, X minutes, for each member of the group was recorded. These times are summarised in the following box and whisker plot. Find the range of times. So for part A, it's going to be the biggest take away the smallest. The biggest one up here is 68, and the smallest one down here is at 7. So it's going to be 68 minus 7. So the range is 61. Moving on to part B, find the interquartile range, where the upper quartile is 25 and the lower quartile is 14. So it's going to be 25 minus 14, which is 11. There we are, that's not too bad for the first two questions. Let's move on to the next couple. For these 27 people, the sum of the data is 607.5, and the sum of x squared is this value here. Calculate the mean time taken to complete the puzzle. So that's going to be the sum of x over n. That's what the mean is equal to. So it's going to be 607.5 divided by the number of pieces of data, which is 27 people. That gives us an answer of 22.5. Let's move on to part D. Now calculate the standard deviation of the times taken to complete the puzzle. Well, the standard deviation is the square root of the sum of x squared over n minus the mean squared. So that's going to be the square root of the sum of x squared, which is 17623.25, over n, which is 27, minus the mean squared. That's going to be minus 22.5 squared. And when we type all of that into the calculator to three significant figures, we get 12.1. Okay, moving on to part E now. Taruni defines an outlier as a value more than 3 standard deviations above the mean. State how many outliers Taruni would say there are in this data, giving a reason for your answer. Well, let's do the lower bound and the upper bound. So the lower bound is going to be 22.5 minus 3 standard deviations above the mean. Oh, we don't need to do a lower bound then, do we? We just need to do an upper bound. Because it's going to be into the negatives, that one, isn't it? Yes, there's no real need to do an lower bound. Let's do an upper bound though. So 22.5 add 3 lots of 12.1, and that's going to give us 58.8, and 58.8 is about here. So there's just going to be one outlier. This is part E, one outlier at 68. So there we are, that's our answer to part E. Okay, let's move on to E and F. Adam and Beth also completed a puzzle in A minutes and B minutes respectively, where A is greater than B. When their times are included in the data of the other 27 people, the median time increases, but the mean time does not change. Suggest a possible value for A and a possible value for B, giving your values satisfy the above conditions. Okay, so we want the median to increase, so we want two values that are above the median. So if we think about a line and there's the median, then if we want the median to increase, then we want two values above the median, because then the middle value will then be the next value up in this data set, because you've got two more this side. Let's say you've got 27 values and the 14th data value is going to be the middle value. Well, now you've got 29 values, the 15th data value is going to be the middle data value. So that will move it up by 1. So we need two values on the right hand side of the median, but given that the mean does not change, they need to be equal distance from the mean, either side of it, from the mean. So it needs to kind of satisfy these two conditions here. It needs to be two data values above the median, but an equal distance from the mean on either side. Okay, so let's have a look back at what our values were. The median in this question was 20, so A and B are going to be greater than 20, and they need to be equally distant from the mean, which was 22.5, so equally distant either side of 22.5. So I'm going to therefore suggest that A is going to be 23 and B equals 22. These two values here satisfy the condition of both being more than 20, so that will increase the median value, and they're equally distant either side of 22.5, so that will keep the mean the same. So moving on to part G now, without carrying out any further calculations, explain why the standard deviations of all 29 times will be lower in your answer to part D. Okay, so if I include these answers to part D, what will happen to the standard deviation? Well, the standard deviation is 12.2, so the average distance from the mean is going to be 12.1. So let's explain this. At the moment, the average distance from the mean, that's the standard deviation here, the average distance from the mean is 12.1. A equals 23 and B equals 22 are quite close to the mean, are very close to the mean. Therefore, will reduce the average distance from the mean. The average distance, that's an A. The average distance from the mean. Okay, so there we are. That's the answer for question G. Let me just explain it a little bit again. At the moment, the average distance from the mean is 12.1 for this data set here. If A is 23 and B is 22, then that's very close to the mean, so therefore when they're included in the calculation for the standard deviation, that will reduce the average distance from the mean from 12.1 to something smaller. So there we are, that's the answer for question 3 there, with a whopping 10 marks in total. Let's now move on to question 4.